I'm very excited to do this. Over the course of my little fishing endeavors, and ever since I created this channel, I have always sought to improve the products that I fish with. That means rods, reels, and line. And I feel like I am finally in a place with these products to finally share with you guys. So what I'm going to be doing over the course of this video is going through my rod and reel arsenal. Okay, that's every rod and every reel and every combo that I use whenever I go hit the water. Now obviously there's lots of different stuff for lots of different applications, so I'll be going through all of the specifications as well as my thought process for using each and every one of these rods. Obviously I'm in my garage and it's very hot and the rods are sitting on the boat, so I'm going to try to be as efficient as I can. I will do a third-person perspective like this so you can see what it looks like in my hands, and then I'll throw the chest mount on and do a first-person perspective so you can see what it would look like if these belong to you. So without further ado, let's get into this rod and reel arsenal video, and always thanks for watching. First setup I'm going to bring you today is the one that people typically finish with whenever they do these rod and reel arsenal videos. I've never understood why, because sometimes they're the ones that get the most use, but for me personally, this is something that I'm not super confident in, and it's not necessarily something that I love, but it also is the lowest price point. And for those of you who are just getting into fishing, or like I watch your videos and I want to fish but I don't really know how to do it, I always recommend starting with a spinning combo, something very, very easy to use, something that you should have learned to use as a kid. If you didn't, your parents failed you, but that's not important. What I have for you today is a FALCON HD 7-foot medium action with a fast taper. I have that paired up with a LEWS MACH speed spool, Mach 2 speed spin, pardon me. It's obviously right-handed. I have that paired up with 10-pound, I believe this is like just White Power Pro, to a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader. This rod and reel is pretty simple. I mean, it is what it is. The applications I use this for is pretty much all slow finesse style presentations, such as wacky rigs, drop shots, and sometimes really, really finessey shaky heads. What I have on there right now is just a good old-fashioned wacky rig Senko, which is just a really, really go-to easy finesse presentation. I really don't recommend going any heavier than medium action for spinning rods and reels. Rip. Not important. Anything heavier than that, you're basically losing the finesse portion of your presentation, right? You might as well just move on to a casting rod. I really, really love the speed spin. I think it's super affordable. I think it retails for like $69.99. I'm sure you could find one cheaper. I know that I found this one cheaper at Academy, which is hilarious. And then the rod, the FALCON HD, this is Falcon's entry-level rod. They make a casting version and a spinning version, and nothing about it is incredibly special. It's just really, really reliable and really consistent, and what you see is what you get. And this retails for about $69.99 as well. So yeah, that is my spinning rod. This is my spinning rod setup. This is the LEWS MACH speed spin, and it is my wacky rig setup. Here's what it looks like in my hands. Really cool. Not a big fan of the lime green, but it is what it is. I don't really care about the aesthetics of a spinning rod and reel. Like I said, I throw finesse baits like wacky rigs, shaky heads, drop shots, just a multitude of stuff on this, or even sometimes really, 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 really light, like Ned rigs or even Nico rigs or Slim Shakes. This is just my finesse setup. It is what it is. It's simple. It gets the job done. There's no sense in trying to spend a ton of money on a spinning setup because your applications are pretty limited, and you can pretty much get by. Now, a lot of like smallmouth guys aren't going to agree with me, but you can get by with having the minimum, in my opinion, for a spinning setup. Let's move on to the next. All right, the next rod and reel I'm going to show you is my Topwater walking bait rod. This is separate from my frog combo, my frogging setup. I'll just be perfectly honest with you. Topwater fishing is something that I love. Topwater fishing is not something that's always readily available to me in my local lakes. And so when I do get to do it, I'm very, very thrilled. But because of the basic lack of use that these combos get, I haven't really invested a lot of money into my Topwater setups. Most guys would tell you that Topwater's like, your Topwater setup should be your most expensive combo because of all of the things that you're asking a rod and reel to do for you. But for me, I have an opposite approach. It's like, if I'm going to do it the least, it's going to be the setup that I spend the least amount of money on. So this is the LEWS Speed Spool LFS. It's a very, very simple entry-level reel. Retails for $99.99. This is in a 7.5 to 1, which is a pretty good speed for these walking baits. I've gotten to the point now where I actually don't need to even work my rod at all. I can do pretty much all of the action on walking style baits such as this just with a couple cranks at the handle. But obviously you can't do that effectively alone. So I have it paired up with a FALCON HD medium heavy. This is 7 foot. It is what it is. Cork handle. Like, there's really not that much to say about this rod. Like I said, for the spinning version, what you see is what you get. Like, it's just really consistent. It's not super expensive, but it is high enough quality for entry-level fishermen and just dudes who need it for a simple setup such as this. Let's go ahead and give you the first-person perspective, and then we'll move on to our next one. What I want to show you is my topwater spook setup or walking baits, or I'll even throw like whopper ploppers on this as well as buzz baits. Just moving topwater basically. Here's what it looks like in my hands. Nothing incredibly special. It's just a LEWS Speed Spool LFS with that FALCON HD. It is what it is, dude. Another topwater rod. Here's what it looks like in my hands. It's clean, really simple, gets the job done. All right, my next setup is my frogging setup. This is very, and by very similar, I mean identical to my walking bait setup, such as spooks and stuff. It's exactly the same. The only difference is I've switched out the cranking knobs on this LEWS Speed Spool LFS, but just like the last one, this is a LEWS Speed Spool LFS in 7.5-to-1 paired up with a FALCON HD 7 foot medium heavy. It's my frogging stick, and I've got like, pretty sure this is 30-pound Power Pro, maybe 40-pound Power Pro. Whatever the case is, I like a thin line diameter. Braid is braid. If you are flipping and frogging and stuff that's super duper heavy, then you're a better fisherman than I am, because I've never had a lot of success there. But this is exclusive to frogging. I mean, it is what it is. This is exactly what it looks like. I usually do hollow bottom frogs or popping frogs, or even those new sprinkler frogs that have the little buzz tail on the end. But just like it's super consistent. I love it. It's got a really fast gear ratio at 7.5-to-1, which is pretty much all you need for frogging, just so you can catch up with those fish who are breaching on your frog and running straight at you. Let's do the first person perspective so you can see what it looks like in my hands, and then we'll move on to the next one. Frogging setup. It is what it is. It's a LEWS Speed Spool LFS paired up with the FALCON HD medium heavy. Here's what it looks like in my hands from a first person perspective. Pretty simple little rod and reel. Gets the job done, nice and clean. And pretty effective. Hopefully we catch a lot of fish on the frog on this upcoming week at Yamamoto's ranch. Right. Now we're starting to get into the fancy stuff, the stuff that I'm really proud of, the setups that I love to use whenever I go fishing. Obviously there's not going to be any more topwater setups, but let's talk about one of my bread and butter setups, one of the things I go to whenever I am fishing. This is my worm or Texas rig or flipping rod. I have a couple of different applications that I use for this. As you can see right now, I got a wobble head tied on there with a big old 10-inch Mondo worm. This is one of my big bottom bait combinations. This is one of my big bottom bait setups that I'm really proud of. Let's talk about it a little bit. So what I have here is the old school FALCON BUCOO. This is not the SR. This is the rod and reel that came out before the SR, and personally I think that this is an even better rod than the new BUCOO SR, but that's just my personal opinion. I have that paired up with the LEWS Tournament LITE Speed Spool. I repeat, that's the LEWS Tournament LITE Speed Spool, which I just think is so clean. It's got that nice glossy black finish with chrome little accents, and then I have a couple of big Wim Grip cranking knobs on there. I have a 17-pound Seaguar red label. Long story short, I'm throwing this off of deep drop-offs in lakes. I'm throwing this on points. Sometimes I'll tie flipping stuff on there, and I'll flip wood and cover. And I just love this rod and reel. I think it's really reliable. The Tournament LITE is a 7.5-to-1 gear ratio, which is really fast. Obviously, you want to pick up a lot of line when you start to feel those bites before you actually set the hook. And that is paired up with a medium-heavy FALCON BUCOO, and it's 7 foot, which is just really reliable. It's a really excellent bottom bait setup. Now, on top of using it for worms, I'll also tie heavy jigs, football jigs, as well as flipping jigs. Obviously, I'm not going to tie finesse jigs on there because I have a completely different setup just for finesse fishing, just for finesse jigs. So this is, again, the FALCON BUCOO, the original in 7 foot medium heavy, paired up with the LEWS Tournament LITE 7.5-to-1. It just feels really good. It's really light in the hands. What's special about the Tournament LITE, I believe it was an Academy exclusive. I don't know why. It retails for about 150 bucks, and the rod is $99. Long story short, what's cool about the Tournament Lite is it's, for a time, it was the lightest reel that LEWS sold, that LEWS put on the market, and it wasn't even one of their, it wasn't even one of their flagship reels. But it's nice. I love this setup. Let's go ahead and put it in my hands in first person, and then we will move on to the next one. Here is my worm setup. Shaky heads, big heavy wobble rigs like this, as well as big heavy Texas rigs. This is my flipping setup. That is the LEWS Tournament Lite paired up with the FALCON BUCOO original. This is 7 foot, medium heavy with a medium fast taper. Obviously, it's really, really light in the hands. As heavy as it looks, it's nice and light. I mean, it's pretty deceiving, but this is probably my lightest setup. That's the LEWS Tournament Lite in a 7.5-1. Gets the job done. The next combo I'm going to show you is one that gets the least amount of use, and because of that, I have not, obviously, but besides all of my Topwater setups, this next combo is something that I'm also not super comfortable with, because I really, really know that fish love grass, but I am horrible at flipping in grass. But in the event that I ever make trips to like Lake Bass Drop or even Lake LBJ, I always have this setup with me, especially in the spring. This is my flipping and pitching setup as far as flipping into grass that is a real heavy and dense brush, as well as stuff that's obviously going to be more likely for fluorocarbon to break up. This is the same FALCON BUCOO as the previous worm rod. This is the FALCON BUCOO original. It's 7 foot, but this is, because obviously it's a flipping stick, it's heavy action. So, it's going to have a really steep, not steep, it's going to have a really sturdy, really strong rod blank. I have that paired up with the LEWS Speed Spool LFS. This one is also in a 7.1-1, or pardon me, a 7.5-1. This is the old school Speed Spool. There's really nothing much to say about this. Obviously, I'm going to throw, big flipping baits such as bandito bugs and rage bugs and big flipping jigs, grass burners, and sometimes I'll even throw frogs on this as well if, I feel like the frog bite's really money. But obviously, I got to get deep into grass. As you can see, this is about a $200 combo. The rod is about $99.99, and the reel is $99.99. So right around 200 bucks, you're getting a pretty good, pretty standard flipping setup. Again, like I said, it doesn't get much use. I use my other two, the bottom bait setups, more often than not. But if I feel like fish are in grass, I'm obviously going to flip big stuff such as this in there. So let's put this in our hands. We'll do the first person perspective, and you guessed it, we'll move on to the next one. Here's my flipping setup. This is for flipping and pitching into really heavy cover, as well as matted grass. This is the LEWS Speed Spool LFS paired up with the FALCON BUCOO. This is 7 foot heavy. It's a flipping setup. It is what it is. Here's what it looks like in the hands. And yeah, baby, it is what it is, man. Another, just a different perspective to look at. Just disclaimer, it is a little bit more pricey. Well, not really. I mean, you talk about some other stuff, but this is actually a pretty, it's one of my more expensive setups. This is also my baby. This is my workhorse. This is my bread and butter setup. This is the rod and reel I love to use the most. Most of my fish are caught on this, and you're probably thinking, does this guy throw any moving baits? Because all I've shown you is static baits so far. So let's talk about our first reaction setup. This is the LEWS BUCOO SR paired up with the LEWS Custom Speed Spool SLP. I just think that white and gray and black is so beautiful. What I throw on this is chatterbaits, swim jigs, belly weighted swim baits, small square bills, wake baits. Pretty much all of my, sorry for screaming, pretty much all of my preliminary moving baits are going to be thrown on this. It is in a slower gear ratio because of the desired action that I want from these moving baits. I don't want to necessarily burn this stuff in. I want it to be low and slow, but fast enough where I can catch up with fish swimming right at me. So like I said, on this I'll throw chatterbaits, swim jigs, belly weighted swim baits. If it moves, you name it, I'm putting it on this more than likely. What I really like about the line of custom speed spools is the pre-designed hook keeper that they have on the reel itself that flips away. I just think that's super nice, so you're not constantly jamming hooks onto your rod blank. Obviously, it's got the wind grips. It also comes, which is a really cool feature for line memorization, especially on tournament days when you're not necessarily sure. It comes with this, let's see if y'all can see that, if it'll focus up. It comes with this, the spool tension dial comes with line weight engraved in it, so you can determine which line you have. Right now I have 15-pound Cigar Red Label on there. Now obviously this is the BUCOO SR. I've only shown you regular BUCOOs up to this point. The SR is the daughter of the Falcon BUCOO. It is composite. It is super duper light. It is super duper durable. It comes with that EVS foam grips, or the EVS cork, whatever you want to call it. And it has this really, really cool carbon fiber finish. And I just think it pairs up so beautifully with this custom SLP. This is my favorite setup, without a doubt. I like using it the most. I'm very, very confident in it. And it has never let me down. So this is my moving bait reaction rod. So let's move on to the next one. I'll put this in my hands and you'll see, wow, it just really, really looks good. It's got a really clean finish to it. Let's put it in my hands and we'll move on to the next one. Here is here's my chatterbait, swim jig, spinnerbait, small crankbait, square bill. I mean, you know what it is if it moves. This is my setup for it. This is the LEWS custom SLP. This is a 6:8 to 1 gear ratio. Here's what it looks like in the hands. Okay, it is what it is, man. This one's obviously, in my mind, the best looking. I just think it's really, really clean, dude. That white, gray, and black looks so good paired up with the Falcon BUCOO SR, which is 7 foot. It's beautiful, man. Beautiful little setup. I love this rod. The pricey stuff. Both of these, the last two combos I'm going to show you are worth around $300 to $350, depending on when you've bought the products and depending on how the market is. The next thing I'm going to show you is my deep diving crankbait rod as well as my swim bait rod. I'm really trying to get into throwing big swim baits. It's all the rage on social media, and it just seems super cool to catch big fish on really, really big baits. So what I have for you today is my swim bait rod. This is the LEWS BB1 Pro. I repeat, that's the LEWS BB1 Pro. What's really, really cool about the BB1 Pro is it's got a massive spool. And I'm talking, you can hold a ton. And I repeat, you can hold a ton of line on the BB1 Pro. Not only that, I believe the BB1 Pro has the highest drag system of any LEWS reels at like 22 pounds of max drag, which is freaking incredible. You know, that's a ton of drag. And you ever hook into a big fish, trust me, you're gonna want your drag to not slip. Now this is separate from their original BB1 because it is the Pro. It does come with these oversized grips. These are a little bit different than the normal wing grips that they're putting on all of their custom speed spools, but they are really, really nice in the hand. They're really soft, and I just think this reel pairs up really, really nice with the original Falcon BUCOO. This is the Falcon BUCOO. The difference is because I'm throwing this on, because I'm throwing big swim baits on this, it is a 7.3 heavy, which is, I mean, this is a tank of a rod. You know, there are very few fish that you can't horse out with this. Between the strength of the BB1 Pro and the strength of this rod and reel, I have not caught a fish that can that can really make this thing work thus far, especially in the local lakes that I fish. But hopefully we can change that coming soon here, and we'll put a real monster on here. So like I said, I throw deep diving crankbaits on this as well as glide baits, big swim baits, or even jointed swim baits such as this little shad presentation here. This is my newest setup. It's one that I'm the least familiar with. I do love it. I have caught a couple big fish on it, and I hope to continue to catch big fish on it. We're going to move on to not necessarily my favorite rod and reel, but the one that in my mind is priceless. So let's do that. I'll put this in my hand and then we'll move on to the next one. Here's my LEWS BB1 Pro paired up with the Falcon BUCOO. This is my swim bait rod. This is a 7'3" heavy rod paired up with a LEWS BB1 Pro speed spool and 6'4" to 1. Obviously that BB1 Pro has a ton of line capacity, and it's just a really, really good looking rod and reel. Every good bass fisherman has to have a setup that he can confidently throw jigs on. I don't think that there is a bait besides maybe just a Texas rig stick bait or a Texas rig Senko. There is not another bait in the fishing industry that parallels or matches the good old-fashioned jig. Jig fishing is the most exciting. Jig bites are the most devastating, and in my mind, they are what get fish really, really going. And so to make sure that you are being as effective as you can fishing the jig, you have to have a very, 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 very good jig setup. My jig setup is, in my mind, priceless. I don't love it as much as that custom SLP just because I think it looks a little bit cooler, but this is by far my most expensive setup. It is also by far my nicest setup. This is the LEWS Tournament Pro Speed Spool LFS. I repeat, this is a long one. This is the LEWS Tournament Pro Speed Spool LFS. What's special about the Tournament Pro is it has a really, really high gear ratio, which is what you really, really need to pick up all of your line as fast as you can when you're fishing jigs, because more often than not, fish are just going to grab it, and you're not going to feel, and that's, I mean, sometimes they really thump it, and that jig is just gone. But more often than not, especially in my local lakes, you'll see that they'll just grab it and they'll hold it, and they're either going to swim with it or they're going to stay put. And more often than not, it just feels like mush. You don't even necessarily feel like you have a bite. You either know it's on or you have a sneaking suspicion. So what I've done is to I guess increase my chances of catching fish on this jig setup. I put a really, really high gear ratio on here. This is an 8:3-to-1. I repeat, this is an 8:3-to-1, and I have this paired up with a 7'3" FALCON BUCOO SR medium heavy. I repeat, that's a FALCON BUCOO SR 7'3" medium heavy. This is my jig setup. I'm really, really proud of it. I've caught a ton of fish on this. On top of throwing jigs, I'll throw really light FINESSE Texas rigs, because even though it is medium heavy, it's just so sensitive. This rod blink is incredible. And on top of jigs, like I said, light Texas rigs. I'll throw pretty heavy shaky heads on here as well. This is for sure a bottom bait setup. It'd be silly to throw moving baits with a gear ratio so high. Like the SLP, it does have this cool little integrated hook keeper that sits in and out of the reel, and it does have those EBS wind grip knobs. Of course, my jig setup. This is the LEWS custom. This is the LEWS Tournament Pro Speed Spool LFS. Really, really good looking rod and reel. This is an 8:3-to-1, 7 foot, medium heavy, and it is what it is, dude. It's another good look, just another good perspective. Obviously, this is a really, really expensive rod and reel. It's got that cool carbon fiber handle. Carbon fiber. It's got the LEWS asterisk, and yeah. Love it. That said, this is my rod and reel arsenal for 2019. These are setups that I'm all very, very confident in and that I am proud to fish with every single day. Now, the reason I even bring this up to you is because really, really proud, even though now they're on the floor. But you know what? That's okay, because I will take care of it. Now, the reason I actually finally did this is because before, the rod and reel arsenal I had was kind of a hodgepodge lodge. You know, it was like just a lot of things thrown together, but I'm finally proud to have a uniform, clean, and product consistent arsenal that I know that I can depend on, and I know when I'm fishing, this is going to be the setups that I want to use and that I'm going to go to battle with these fish. Now, I am going to Gary Yamamoto's ranch this week to catch my PB. I've buckled down. I've paid the money to do it. Lots of big fish have been caught out there. Crap, a 12-pounder was caught out there 6 days ago. Shout outs to Instagram for all of the details. If you guys don't know where to catch fish, look on Instagram. People just give their locations away effortlessly. So these are all set up for Gary Yamamoto's ranch, except my jig setup. I am going to throw this cool little creature bait on here, but just so you know that this is my jig setup, I did tie a jig on. So without further ado, this is my rod and reel arsenal of 2019. Pretty soon we will be doing a boat review, so you guys get to see what I'm fishing on. But, you know, between the football off season, I don't really have enough time to do all that crap. So, thank you so much for watching. It's been a lot of fun showing you guys this stuff. If you have any questions, or if you're like, look, man, I can't afford $300 setups, or crap, I can't afford $200 setups, or dude, I can't afford $100 setups. There are plenty of ways to get involved. You know, this rod and reel arsenal started off with a bunch of Abu Garcia Black Maxes and like a couple of Berkeley rods that I bought from Walmart. So don't be discouraged by these rods and reels. You find something that works for you and just get out there and fish. Enough said.